I once thought that nothing hurt more than having your closest friend turn his back on you at the moment you needed him most. But it turned out that time had its own way of reminding me that some things were never truly closed. Early winter days in Portland always carried a cold, gray tone, as if the city was deliberately forcing people to confront the parts of their memories they wished they could bury. I walked quickly in my old coat, avoiding the slanted raindrops hitting the sidewalk. Yet the chill in the air pulled me straight back to thoughts of Noah, the old friend who left a cut so deep inside me that I never fully healed from it. The city was the same, the streets were the same, but I was different. I was living the life of a grown man with responsibilities, an IT job at a mid-sized company, the hospital debt my mother left behind, and the daily pressure of bills and obligations every man in his 30s understands. But even in the middle of those burdensome routines, there were moments, seemingly insignificant, that could drag me back to that one night 10 years ago when Noah promised to be a witness for my mother's accident case, only to disappear as if he had never existed. I remembered everything from that night, the night that compressed my entire youth into a tight, painful knot. I needed him. I really needed him. Just a promise, just a signature. Just a friend, but Noah never showed up. I called him dozens of times, texted him endlessly, and everything fell into silence. For years, I tried to erase the image of my friend standing beside me during those university years, tried to forget the late nights we spent by the dorm window talking about the future. But Noah's silence that night was like a direct blow to my trust, making me lose not just a friend, but a part of myself. Yet life has a cruel sense of humor. That evening, while I was standing in line at a small grocery store near my house, ready to grab a few things, I suddenly saw a familiar silhouette a few meters away. A slightly leaning posture, an oversized coat, messy hair wet from the rain. My heart tightened within a split second. I knew that silhouette. I knew the way his shoulders tilted forward slightly when he was cold. I even knew how he rested his hand in his pocket when he walked. A habit I once found amusing. My heart pounded as if someone had grabbed it. I froze, unable to take another step. Part of me wanted to run toward him, grab his shoulder, demand why he disappeared without a word. But another part, the one that had been wounded for years, wanted to turn away and pretend nothing happened. The man turned around. In that moment, I saw a face that looked familiar, but exhausted, hollowed out. His eyes, if that was truly him, no longer carried the confidence they once did. They looked empty, as if holding up a sky full of weight no one else could see. My breath hitched, my heartbeat grew uneven, and then I turned away. I couldn't. I didn't have the strength to reopen a wound I barely managed to stitch together. I walked out of the store, convincing myself that it was just someone who looked like Noah. But all night long, that image sliced through my thoughts. I tried focusing on finishing a poster for Ava, tried talking like nothing happened, tried pretending I wasn't shaken. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw that dim, broken gaze. The gaze of someone who once meant more to me than I admitted, and who also taught me what deep disappointment truly felt like. I went to bed earlier than usual, lying beside Ava while my mind kept spinning, wondering if the man in the store was truly Noah. And if it was him, why did he look like someone who had lost everything? I didn't know. I didn't dare ask. I didn't dare face the possibility that fate wanted me to cross paths again with the one person who once made me believe expectations were the root of all pain. I closed my eyes, but my heart stayed restless. I told myself the feeling would pass like every other memory. But deep down, I knew I was wrong. That wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something I couldn't yet understand. Something I was about to be pulled into, whether I wanted it or not. That weekend evening, Portland was still as cold and damp as always, but inside me was a feeling far more unsettling than the weather outside. Ava wanted to go out for dinner because she had been exhausted from teaching all week. I agreed, though my mind was still haunted by the image of the man I had seen at the grocery store the night before. We went to a small fast food place near our home, a place always crowded with students and long-haul drivers. The smell of fries, the sound of chatter, the warm yellow lights. Everything felt normal, yet I sensed something waiting for me. Ava ordered first, while I stood behind her scanning the people around us without knowing what I was searching for. Maybe a familiar face. Maybe a sign. Maybe an answer to a question I didn't dare ask out loud. Was that man really Noah? I wasn't sure, but my heart was already offering its own answer. When we finally found an empty table, the restaurant door opened. The bell chimed in a completely ordinary way, but to me, it felt like a sharp needle stabbing directly into my memory. I lifted my head, and I saw him. There was no doubt. It was Noah Bennett. He stood awkwardly at the ordering counter, his hair wet from the rain, his shoes worn down, his jacket faded. And the thing that froze me the most was his eyes. They weren't the eyes of the man who had once abandoned me without explanation. They were the eyes of someone crushed by life. Someone who no longer had enough confidence to look anyone directly in the face. My legs felt numb, and Ava noticed my sudden silence. She tilted her head and asked, "Are you okay?" I didn't get a chance to answer, because right then Noah turned his head. He recognized me instantly. In that brief moment, his eyes widened as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. A small flicker, almost like hope, flashed in them, then died immediately, replaced by fear. He stood there, frozen, wet, trembling slightly, completely lost. I didn't know why, but my heart wasn't filled with anger like I thought it would be. Instead, I felt surprised and oddly sad. "Noah?" I whispered, unsure if I even wanted a response. He swallowed hard, taking a hesitant step toward me. When he was a few steps away, he stopped. His lips trembled like he wanted to speak but didn't know where to begin. "Declan," he said softly, his voice rough from the cold and from something deeper. "It's really you?" Ava looked at me, then at Noah. She knew instantly that something serious existed between us. I nodded but didn't move closer. I didn't know whether to hug him, slap him, or walk away. My body felt trapped between the past and the present. Noah took a shaky breath, then spoke quickly as if afraid he would run away. I'm sorry. I know I have no right to show up in front of you, but I just wanted to say it once. Just once." My heartbeat pounded in my ears. For years, I imagined this moment full of rage, accusations, or at least some sort of resentment. But standing in front of him now, I saw a man who looked defeated. Someone who barely had enough dignity left to keep his head up. Ava gently tugged my hand and whispered, "Do you want to talk to him? I can wait." I didn't answer. Instead, I took a step toward Noah. He lowered his head immediately, like a child expecting to be scolded. "Noah, what happened to you?" I asked. He let out a small, broken laugh. Not the laugh of someone amused, but the laugh of someone who had lost his way. "A lot happened, Declan. So much that I don't even know where to start. But I owe you an apology. One I should have said a long time ago." A tightness formed in my throat. Part of me wanted to listen, but another part wanted to run far away so I wouldn't have to reopen old wounds. Noah glanced around nervously, as if afraid someone might overhear. "I wasn't looking for you, Declan. I didn't even dare. I just happened to stop by to get out of the rain and saw you. I'm living in a truck at the parking lot on the west side of the city." His words hit me like a cold wave. Noah, once a man full of ambition and fire, was now sleeping in a truck? Ava tightened her hold on my hand. I didn't know what drove me in that moment. Maybe compassion. Maybe memories. Maybe the simple fact that Noah was standing in front of me like someone on the verge of completely giving up. I told him one sentence. "Come sit and eat with us." Noah froze. He looked at me as if I had just pulled him away from a cliff's edge. "Declan, are you sure?" "I'm not repeating it," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He nodded, stunned. As we sat down together, I noticed his hands trembling under the table. He didn't dare order food, didn't dare look at me directly, and every time Ava asked something, he answered in the smallest voice. But what struck me the most was when he whispered, "I'm not expecting forgiveness, Declan. I just wanted to talk once before disappearing again." Those words left me speechless. I didn't know what our future would look like, but one thing was certain. This was not a coincidence. It was the beginning of something fate had prepared long ago. I didn't know why I let Noah sleep on the sofa that night. Maybe it was because Ava looked at me with gentle eyes and said, no one deserves to sleep in a truck during winter. Or maybe because I, without admitting it, felt that my heart wasn't ready to turn away from someone who had once been such a big part of my youth. Whatever the reason was, when I placed the blanket over Noah, I knew something was changing, not just in this house, but inside me as well. Our small home had always been tight on space. Just one bedroom, a small living room, and a kitchen barely big enough to turn around in. So when another person moved in, the atmosphere shifted entirely. Ava walked more quietly, I became more observant, and Noah curled into himself as if he feared bothering anyone. He woke up early, folded his blanket neatly, wiped the table, washed the dishes, even swept the porch, though no one asked him to. Ava smiled politely at his efforts while I didn't know what to feel. Part of me thought he was trying to appear useful so he wouldn't be asked to leave. But a deeper part knew this wasn't the Noah of the past anymore. The second morning he stayed, Ava and I discussed it over breakfast. She was always the more straightforward and practical one between us. "Do you know what you're doing?" she asked softly, making sure Noah in the living room wouldn't hear. I nodded, though I wasn't fully certain myself. She looked at me with both worry and trust. "I don't want you hurt again, but looking at him, I think he really has nowhere left to go." Her words made me silent for a long moment. I remembered the Noah from years ago, the one who talked endlessly about the future, about crazy startup ideas we drew on scrap paper during sleepless nights. He used to be the first person to believe in me, encouraging me through the despair when my mother had her accident. Yet on the very night that mattered most, he vanished. That wound wasn't small. It carved itself into me in a way I thought would last forever. But now, seeing Noah curled up on the sofa, exhausted and afraid, I found it hard to hate him the way I once did. Maybe life had taught him lessons far harsher than anything he had taught me. On the third day, I took Noah to a garage owned by an acquaintance, Mark, the mechanic who had fixed my old car many times. I asked if he needed an extra hand. Mark looked Noah up and down, then glanced back at me. "You sure?" I nodded. "He used to be my best friend." Mark smiled, but it was the smile of someone who had seen too much of the world. "All right, but if he causes trouble, I'm calling you." I nodded again. Noah only whispered, "Thank you." Yet in his eyes, I saw a gratitude deeper than any words could express. That night, when I returned home, I heard soft noises from the living room. I walked in and saw Noah sitting on the sofa, his head bowed, his hands covering his face. I turned to leave so I wouldn't intrude, but the sound of his broken breathing made me stop. Noah was crying. Not loudly, not desperately, but the kind of crying only people who have endured too much can understand. Heavy, weary, as if his heart had been drained dry and had finally found a place safe enough to break. I stood there for a few seconds, my mind spinning. Maybe I should walk away. Maybe I shouldn't interfere. But my feet moved toward him before my thoughts could stop them. I gently placed a blanket over his shoulders. He flinched, lifted his head, and his eyes were red and wet. He looked at me as if he couldn't believe I was there, the very person he had hurt so deeply, now the person offering him comfort. "Declan," he whispered, his voice trembling. I'm really sorry." I didn't answer right away. I sat beside him, not too close, but close enough for him to know I wasn't leaving. A long silence stretched between us, not uncomfortable, not tense, just the silence of two people who had lost too much time apart. "I don't know what happened to you," I said quietly, "but I know one thing. You're not the person who ran away back then." Noah lowered his head, tears dripping onto his hand. "I want to tell you, but I'm scared. Scared you'll think I'm making excuses. Scared you'll tell me to get out. Scared you'll hate me forever." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of those lost years. "I don't know if I've forgiven you," I admitted, "but I want to understand, if you want to tell me." Noah looked up, his eyes empty yet filled with a fragile hope. A tiny hope, like a candle flickering in the wind. "I'll tell you," he whispered. "Just not tonight. I'm not brave enough yet." I nodded. "All right. When you're ready." As I stood to head to my room, Noah called softly, "Declan, thank you. Thank you for letting me stay, even though I don't deserve it. I didn't turn around. I just said, "Go to sleep. We have to wake up early tomorrow." But something inside me had shifted. I didn't know if it was forgiveness or merely pity for a man who had lost himself. But I knew Noah wasn't lying. He was no longer the man from 10 years ago. And in that moment, I realized that sometimes kindness isn't just kindness. It's a liberation that both people desperately need. That morning, the rain came early. Portland was always damp, but the rain that day felt as if it were deliberately dragging every dark memory from deep inside me to the surface. I drove to the garage to pick Noah up because Mark said he was working a few extra hours. And in this cold, walking home would definitely make him sick. I didn't explain the reason to myself. I just knew that ever since Noah stayed with us, it felt like an invisible thread was pulling me to pay attention to him, even if I didn't want to admit it. Rain streaked down the windshield in long gray lines. I sat in the car waiting for Noah to finish his shift, my mind swirling with everything he had said, and everything he hadn't. I felt as though a door was slowly opening between us, but to step through it, we would both have to face something buried for 10 years. I didn't know if I was ready for the truth, but I knew I needed it. The garage door opened. Noah walked out nearly drenched, shoulders hunched from the cold. Under the dim yellow light, he looked like a shadow of a man stepping out of another life, a life with no light left in it. When he opened the door and sat in the passenger seat, I noticed his hands trembling. He gave me a weak smile. "Sorry, today was a bit too much." I shook my head and handed him the towel I had prepared. We sat in silence for a long time. The rain hitting the roof of the car felt like it was speaking for both of us. Finally, I asked, the question I had held back for years. "Noah, why did you disappear that day?" No circling around it, no hesitation. I asked straight. I didn't want to keep living in half answers, half anger, half healing. If we were ever going somewhere, whether reconciliation or final closure, this question had to be answered. Noah rested the towel on his knees, his eyes sinking like stones falling to the bottom of water. He was silent so long I thought he would refuse to answer. But then he exhaled, a long breath that sounded like he was lifting a boulder off his chest. "That day, I didn't disappear because I wanted to, Declan." His voice was hoarse, shaky, but not evasive. "I ran because I was a coward." He paused for a few seconds, then continued, slow but sharp as a blade. "That day, my dad was arrested. My family went bankrupt. The house was taken. My mom collapsed. I had to drop out of school that very day to take care of everything. I took every job I could find, worked non-stop, and I was ashamed. Too ashamed to face you. Someone with a future. Someone with strength. Someone who could stand tall." I stayed silent, each word landing heavy on my chest. "I knew you needed me to testify for your mom's accident," Noah continued. "I knew I promised. But right before that meeting, I got the call about my dad being taken to the station and my mom fainting. I ran everywhere. I didn't check my phone. And when things finally calmed for a moment, I was scared. Scared you'd never forgive me. Scared you'd think I abandoned you on purpose. And I wasn't brave enough to call." I turned to look at him. His face no longer carried any trace of the confidence he once had. Only exhaustion and regret carved deep into every line. "I disappeared," Noah whispered, "because I thought it was better for you to be angry at me than to see me in such a pathetic state. I was more afraid of disappointing you than anything else." My heart tightened in a strange way. Part of me wanted to be angry, but the anger wasn't whole anymore. Instead, I felt a deep sadness, and a truth I hadn't expected. The Noah from back then hadn't been a traitor. He'd been a desperate boy hiding his own collapse. I swallowed the heaviness in my throat. "You should have told me." "I know," he whispered. "But when I realized how badly I messed everything up, I thought it was too late to fix anything. And then the years just kept passing. Every day I wanted to call, but the longer I waited, the more terrified I became." He looked at me, his eyes red and wet. "Declan, I know I destroyed our friendship, and I punished myself by running from it for 10 years. I closed my eyes for a moment, a cold breath sweeping through my chest. I didn't know how to react. Anger? Sadness? Compassion? Maybe all at once. Noah exhaled again, almost hopelessly. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know the truth. So if you hate me, at least it's for the right reason." Only the sound of rain filled the car. I gripped the steering wheel lightly, then loosened my hold. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I said honestly. "But I do know I don't want to misunderstand anymore." Noah bowed his head, as if lifting it might allow hope he believed he didn't deserve. We sat in the car a few more minutes, letting the silence rearrange everything. Not the heavy silence of resentment, but the silence of two people finally touching a truth both had avoided for too long. When I started the engine, Noah spoke so softly it almost disappeared into the rain. "Thank you for still wanting to hear me." I didn't look at him. I just said, "Let's go home." But in my heart, I knew this was the first real step, the step leading us towards something neither of us could yet imagine. The next morning, I woke up with a strange feeling in my chest. Not exactly relief, but no longer the suffocating heaviness either. It was like, after a door opens, cold wind rushes in for a moment, then slowly fades, leaving behind a quiet, empty space. I went downstairs before Ava, intending to make a cup of coffee, but the moment I turned on the light, I saw Noah sitting there already, holding a warm mug I was sure Ava had made for him before she left for work. He looked more tired than usual, his eyes still marked with dark circles, but unlike the other mornings, he lifted his head and gave me a small smile when he saw me. A smile that couldn't hide his fatigue, but was honest and softer than any I'd seen from him before. "Morning," he said. I sat down across from him, pulling out the chair slowly, as if giving myself extra time to gather my thoughts. "You're up early?" "Couldn't sleep," he answered, staring down into his cup as though its warmth was the only thing anchoring him to the present. I didn't say anything else. I didn't need to. We both understood that last night's conversation was only the beginning. And what Noah had shared, difficult, painful, complicated, had dissolved a large part of the resentment I'd been carrying. Near noon, I received an email from the bank. At first, I thought it was just another notice or reminder. But when I opened it, my chest tightened almost instantly. I read the message over and over, each time feeling the weight inside me grow heavier. The medical debt of customer Declan Ross is overdue by 60 days. If payment or a repayment agreement is not established within 30 days, the customer's property may be subject to foreclosure. My hands turned cold. The numbers on the screen felt like they were growing sharper, more threatening with every second. I knew I still had debt, but I didn't think the situation had become this severe. Ava didn't know. I'd avoided telling her because I didn't want her to worry. She was already juggling so much. Her job, our home, trying to keep everything from falling apart. But now, with the bank's message pressing against my throat like a blade, I could no longer pretend everything was fine. I stood up from the breakfast table and walked to the window, pressing my forehead against the cold glass. The gray Portland sky mirrored exactly how I felt inside. The only difference was the wind outside had room to move, while I felt trapped in this house with a letter ready to crush everything. Noah stepped closer, saying nothing at first, but I felt his eyes on my back. "Declan, did something happen?" he asked quietly. I wanted to reject the instinct to hide everything, but my throat felt constricted. I turned around, forcing my voice to sound casual. "It's nothing. Just a work email." Noah didn't believe it. I saw it in his eyes. Suspicion, intuition, the sharp awareness of someone who had lived too long in uncertainty. He didn't press further, but he stood there for a long time, as though waiting for me to open up. I didn't. The entire afternoon I worked like a machine, my fingers moving across the keyboard while my mind refused to focus. I tried calling the bank, but all they said was the same thing. Overdue, no more extensions. I tried calling a few old friends, but everyone was struggling. I even tried looking into credit options, but my income wasn't high enough to qualify. Every possible path to fixing the debt hanging above my head like an execution order, was closing one by one. When I got home, Ava had dinner ready. She smiled at me, and that smile felt like a knife twisting into my chest. I felt guilty for hiding things from her. Guilty for not being the strong support she deserved. Noah wasn't home. When I asked, Ava said he had volunteered to work overtime at the garage. I nodded, but something uneasy stirred inside me. Like Noah was carrying a burden he shouldn't be carrying. I tried to push the feeling away, but it stayed. Night fell. Ava went to bed. I sat alone in the living room, staring at the printed bank letter on the table. The numbers looked like cracks in the wall, clearer the longer I stared, as though this house was moments away from collapsing. I wondered what my mother would say if she were still alive. Maybe she would tell me not to give up. Maybe she would tell me to find another way. But what terrified me most was feeling like there was no way left. Close to midnight, the door opened. Noah stepped in. His clothes were wet, his hands stained with oil, his face exhausted. When he saw the paper on the table, his eyes changed. Not curiosity, fear. A kind of fear I had never seen in him before. Declan, what is this? I startled and tried to hide the paper, but it was too late. Noah, it's nothing, just a little issue. He walked over, picked up the letter, read it. And when his eyes lifted to meet mine, I knew he understood. And I wished more than anything that I could erase that moment from his life. You're going to lose your house? He asked, voice hoarse. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to remain steady. I'll manage it. You don't have to worry. But Noah didn't take his eyes off the paper. He stood there, silent. And in that silence, I felt something shift deeply inside him. Something strong, decisive, and frightening in its intensity. I didn't know then that this moment was where everything began to change. I didn't know how long Noah stood there, still holding the bank letter as if it were something that could burst into flames at any moment. He stared at it, his expression shifting from shock to worry, then to something I couldn't name. Something deeper than fear. Something like a person watching their past replay in front of them. I stepped forward, intending to snatch the paper back, but Noah held it tightly. Declan, he said, his voice so low I had to strain to hear it. Why didn't you tell me about this? I exhaled slowly, trying to stay calm. Because it's my problem. I can handle it. You can't, Noah replied instantly without hesitation. He lifted his head, and the look in his eyes made me pause. I've been exactly where you are, and I lost everything. I almost argued, but the words caught in my throat. Noah placed the letter on the table, his hands still trembling slightly. He walked a few steps, like he was trying to steady himself before speaking again. The night my dad was arrested, he began. The police came to seize our house the very next day. My mom collapsed right on the doorstep because she couldn't take the pressure. I ran from the bank to a lawyer, then to every support organization I could find, but no one could help. I didn't know what to do, and everything slipped out of my hands in just a few days. I stood still, each word sinking into me like stones into water. Noah turned back to me, and in his eyes was the reflection of old pain being torn open again. When I read this, he said, I saw myself 10 years ago, and I can't watch that happen to you. I clenched my fists. Noah, I'm fine. I just need more time. I can handle this. You're not fine, Declan, he answered, not a shred of doubt in his voice. If you were fine, you would have told Ava. If you were fine, you wouldn't be sitting alone in the middle of the night staring at this letter like it's about to swallow you whole. I felt exposed, completely stripped bare, and I hated that feeling. I turned away, not wanting him to see my face falling apart. But Noah stepped closer, his voice trembling yet firm. Declan, this time, let me help. I spun back around. No! The word burst out harsher than I intended. I don't need your help. I've taken care of my life for 10 years. I don't want you getting involved. Noah remained silent for a few seconds. Then he said, You were there for me, even after I disappointed you. Even though I didn't deserve it. You gave me a place to stay, a job, a chance to start over. You did all that without asking how I could repay you. I swallowed hard, my throat tightening. Noah took a step closer, his eyes deep enough that I couldn't look into them for long. Declan, this is how I repay you. His words froze me in place. It took a few seconds for me to fully understand what he meant. And when I did, fear replaced any sense of gratitude. Noah, what are you planning to do? I asked, my voice almost hoarse. He didn't answer right away. He glanced at me, then at the letter on the table. His eyes no longer trembled with fear. They were filled with a determination I had never seen in him, not even when he was the ambitious, hopeful Noah from 10 years ago. Don't do anything reckless, I added quickly, my voice rising. Noah gave a bittersweet smile, one that looked both sad and strangely calm. Declan, the only reckless thing for me would be losing one more important person. I shook my head. No, Noah. You've gone through too much already. You don't owe me anything. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a thin wallet. He placed it on the table. When I looked at it, a cold shiver ran down my spine. This is all the money I've saved over the years, he said. I know it's not enough to clear your debt, but it's enough to buy you time. Enough so your house won't be taken. I immediately pushed the wallet back toward him. No, I'm not taking it. You have to, Noah said, his voice firm for the first time. I don't have much left in this life, Declan, but I have the chance to make things right, and I want to use it on you. I stared at him for a long time. In his tired but resolute eyes, I saw more than regret. I saw a vow he had tied to his own soul. My throat tightened. Noah, I can't take the money you saved to survive. He shook his head. I've survived 10 worthless years already. If using that money saves you, maybe that's when I truly start living. His words stunned me completely. My mind raced with protests, warnings, logic, but my heart knew he meant every word, and that he had already made his decision. Before I could say anything else, he turned away and picked up his coat. Noah, where are you going? I asked. To work more hours, he said softly. There are things I need to take care of. Before he opened the door, I called out, Noah, don't do anything you'll regret. He looked back and gave me a sad, gentle smile. The thing I regret most happened 10 years ago. Everything I'm doing now is me fixing it. The door closed, and I knew, though I didn't yet understand how, that everything was about to change in ways no one could stop. The next day, I could barely concentrate at work. The lines of code on the screen danced before my eyes like another language entirely, while my mind kept replaying one image. Noah, standing in the living room last night, exhausted yet with a determination in his eyes that unsettled me. I had never seen him like that. Not Noah from 10 years ago with youthful ambition, not the broken Noah from recent months, but someone else entirely. Strong, quiet, and willing to sacrifice everything. I wanted to believe he only intended to help a little, just offer support as a friend. But something inside me whispered that Noah wasn't the kind of person who did things a little. Once he tied himself to a decision, he would follow it all the way, no matter the cost. That scared me. Truly scared me. In the afternoon, I called the garage to ask if Noah was working. Mark said Noah had taken the day off to deal with personal matters. The moment I heard that, my heart dropped. I texted Noah. Where are you? The message showed sent, but not seen. I texted again. Don't do anything impulsive. Come home so we can talk. Still nothing. I was restless all afternoon. Ava noticed, of course. She asked several times if I was okay. I told her it was work stress, but I knew she didn't believe me. She was never good at hiding her feelings, but she was incredibly good at noticing when someone else was hiding theirs. When we got home, Noah still wasn't back. The makeshift bed I had tidied that morning remained untouched, neat in a way that made my stomach twist. Ava placed her hand on my shoulder. Do you want me to call the police? What if something happened to him? No, I said too quickly. Noah is fine. He's just handling something stupid. Ava frowned, but didn't ask more. She knew there were things I had to face myself before I could tell anyone. Around 9 p.m. my phone rang, an unknown number. My first instinct was to ignore it, but the feeling in my gut was too strong. I picked up immediately. Declan Ross? A man asked. Yes. Who is this? I'm the manager of Southeast Portland Pawn. There's someone here named Noah Kingsley. He asked me to contact you. My blood ran cold. I shot to my feet, the chair crashing behind me, but I didn't care. Noah's there? What is he doing at a pawn shop? He brought in some valuable items to sell, but he said to call you before finalizing anything. I gripped the phone. Can I speak to him? A short silence, footsteps, then Noah's voice. Tired, hoarse, and with something in it that made my heart twist painfully. Declan, I'm sorry I didn't answer your texts. Noah, what the hell are you doing? I heard him exhale softly, as though he had no strength left to hide anything. I'm just trying to help you. The money I saved isn't enough, so I thought I could sell a few things I still have. I don't need them anymore. I just need you to be okay. It felt like someone squeezed my heart hard. Noah, listen. Stop. Right now. I'm coming to get you.
Declan, I'm coming.
I hung up before he could say more. Ava stared at me, startled, as I grabbed my car keys. Where are you going? What happened? I looked at her for 1 second, just enough to see the fear in her eyes. But I couldn't explain anything then. Noah needs me. I said it and ran outside while Ava called after me. Declan, let me go with you. But I couldn't. I needed to reach Noah as fast as possible, before he did something he could never undo. I sped through the heavy night rain. The wipers couldn't keep up. The water blurred everything. Streetlights reflected on the wet pavement like shards of a broken mirror. Each second that passed felt like Noah was slipping further away. I reached the pawn shop after nearly 20 minutes of reckless driving. The neon sign, flashing red in the dark, looked like an open wound. I rushed inside, and the moment I stepped in, I saw Noah standing at the counter, his hand resting on a wooden box. The only possession of his father he'd always said he would keep for the rest of his life. I froze. Noah. My voice cracked. He turned. In his eyes was relief, but behind it, a sorrow so deep it broke something inside me. Declan, he whispered. I just wanted to help. I stepped forward, pulled the box from his hand, and placed it back on the counter. You're not selling this. It's the only thing you have left of your father. Noah looked at me, his gaze hollow and heavy. I know. But if selling it means you won't lose everything, I don't regret it. My eyes burned. I didn't know if from anger or pain. No, Noah. You don't understand. I don't want to save my house by watching you sacrifice the last pieces of your life. He bowed his head. Then, what do you want me to do, Declan? Just watch you get crushed by this debt? I've lost everything before. I won't let it happen to you. I grabbed his shoulders tightly. You already helped. You've done more than enough. What I need now isn't your money. I need you to still be here. I need you not to destroy yourself for me. Noah lifted his head. And in that moment, for the first time in 10 years, our eyes truly met. No walls, no pretense, no anger, no guilt. No running, no hiding. No lying to ourselves, just one simple, devastating truth. We were both terrified of losing each other again. After pulling Noah out of the pawn shop, I walked him to the car. The rain outside was heavy, as if the sky was about to collapse over Portland. I opened the car door for him, but he didn't move. He stood there with his head lowered, like a child unsure whether he was still allowed to return home. I'm sorry, he said, his voice so quiet the rain almost swallowed it. I know I shouldn't have done that, but I couldn't watch you lose everything. I placed a hand on his shoulder, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might split my chest open. Noah, listen to me. I don't need you to repay me. I never considered what I did for you a debt. He looked up. His eyes were red, tired, but filled with something that made my throat tighten. A loyalty so absolute it hurt. A raw sincerity formed only when someone has once lost too much. I just wanted, this time, not to be the one who failed you, he said. I exhaled, taking his trembling hand. You're not failing me. You're punishing yourself for a mistake we both spent 10 years suffering from. And I don't want you to carry it like a chain anymore. This time Noah got into the car. He didn't say anything. He just stared out the window, as though the shame inside him was too heavy for him to face me yet. The drive home felt long. I slowed the car because of the rain, but truthfully, I just wanted more time to find the right words. Some conversations require walking through an entire past before reaching the future. When we arrived, Ava was waiting at the door. She looked at me, then at Noah, and I could see the worry mixed with confusion in her eyes. I shook my head slightly, saying, "It's okay," without words, and she didn't ask more. She understood that silence was the only way to let us untangle the knots ourselves. Noah sat on the sofa, holding the wooden box as if it were keeping his heart from falling apart. I sat beside him, keeping a small distance but close enough that he knew I was there. "Declan," he began. "Wait," I said. "Let me talk first this time." He nodded. "I was angry with you for 10 years, I said honestly. Angry because you disappeared. Angry because I lost my best friend at the moment I needed him most. But there's something I never said. He looked up, bracing himself as if expecting another blow. I was also angry at myself, I continued, for expecting too much from you, for assuming that if you broke your promise, it meant I didn't matter to you. I never considered that you were fighting your own battles. Noah stared at me for a long moment before asking, in a trembling voice, "Have you forgiven me?" I took a long breath. I don't know, but I want to try. Something broke inside him. Relief mixed with pain. He lowered his head, covering his face with both hands like he was trying to hold himself together. "Declan, I can't let you lose your home," he said, voice strained. "I've lost everything once. I can't let it happen to someone who saved me." "I know," I said, "but you need to let me save myself. I'll find a way. I'll handle this." He looked at me, ready to argue, but then he shook his head, understanding that pushing harder wouldn't help either of us. "So, what can I do?" he asked, for the first time offering trust instead of sacrifice. I placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stay. Don't go anywhere. Let me know you're still here. That matters more than money." Noah smiled, weak, but the first real smile in weeks. "Okay," he whispered. "I'll stay." The next day I told Ava everything. I expected her to be angry that I hid it, but she simply hugged me and said, "We'll get through this. Together." The days that followed were long, full of phone calls, negotiations with the bank, and seeking legal advice. Noah went back to work too, but his desperation was gone. He didn't try to give me money anymore. Instead, he cooked meals, fixed the garage door, handled small chores around the house, quietly but persistently, like a reminder that he was still here, and that the 10 years of silence between us no longer defined anything. 2 weeks later, I received a proposal from the bank. Not ideal, but enough to let me pay gradually without losing the house. When I saw the email, I exhaled like I hadn't breathed in weeks. That evening I told Noah. He didn't say much. He just looked at me and smiled softly. "I told you," I said. "I can handle it." Noah replied, "I know, I just wanted to stand beside you while you did." And for the first time in a very long time, I felt something in my chest lighten. Not because the debt was settled, but because the friend I lost had returned. Not as a shadow of the past, but as a part of my present. Someone I no longer feared losing. We sat together, saying nothing. Only silence remained. But it was the silence of two people who had walked through a great pain and still chose not to leave each other. A peaceful silence. An ending. And a beginning.